Good evening. My name is Denise Casey, and I would like to call to order the Commission on Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity for Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. It is 7:01 p.m., and this is a virtual session. The live broadcast can be heard on www.northandovercam.org. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Commission on Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity will be conducted via remote participation for members of the public. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website, www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28, or again online, www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And I just realized that I mispronounced the committee's name, which has been changed to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Oh, does anyone know who Luke Michael is? Okay. And we're welcoming Mr. Michael to the meeting.
Hi there. Hi there. It's Mr. Michelle, but that's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Thank you. Hi, Denise. No, it's
Hi.
problem. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I will take the agenda out of order. We had a request from Cantor Vera to look at a meeting date. She has a hard stop at 8:15. So I know it's difficult to get all of our calendars together. So if we could do that now and look for our December meeting, um, that would be most helpful to her. Or if it's okay with the committee, if we develop a kind of what day of the month we might want to do, i.e., third Thursday, I'm sorry, third Tuesday or whatever, that would be very helpful so people can, you know, have their schedule set in advance. I think, did I just see EJ come in? Thank you. Yep. And Asia. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thanks, EJ. So for December, let me pull up my calendar here. So the second, see, we have the 8th is the second Tuesday, the 15th is the third, and I would not want to go any farther than that into that season. Does anyone have an already identified conflict on either of those days?
Hi, sorry, I just came in. It's Tony.
Oh, hey, Tony.
Hi. Sorry. So what are we talking about for?
Sure. So we took the agenda item number, I believe it's 9 for the next meeting out of order so
Okay.
that we can look for our meeting schedule. Cantavera has a hard stop at 8:15. So we're just trying to get that out of the way so we don't have to worry about that. And the two dates that we were looking at, I can even offer the 1st, the 8th, or the 15th. And I'm just asking if anybody has a hard hard no on any of those dates already.
And so I'm traveling to California on the 15th.
Okay.
The only hard no for me would probably be on the 1st. So I apologize for that, but
That's okay. Okay, so I see on the 8th, the zoning board of appeals is already scheduled, as is the 15th. Okay. So this is what makes it a little more tricky. Looks like the planning board has every Tuesday evening scheduled, which that can't be. What can that be? All right. So let me do this then, so I don't take up a lot of time. So why don't I go and see if all of those planning board meetings are legitimate, because the cable can't videotape two different meetings at the same time. So let me check and see if they need all those 3 weeks in a row. And then I will circle back to everyone via email to try to get availability. I think that would be the best, probably the best way to work it. I think it may be impossible for us to be able to get perfect attendance at every meeting. So hopefully we'll be able to find, one of those days or another day. I know that, everybody had at least 1 or 2 days a week that weren't good, or 1 or 2 evenings a week that weren't good. So let me try to do my best and come up with a date that we can all convene again. All right. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from the last session? Sorry, I'm flipping between screens here. Did anyone have any amendments that they wanted to make to those minutes before I'll entertain a motion to accept them? Okay.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Was that you, Dave?
No, that was EJ.
Oh, thanks, EJ. Sorry. And do I have a second?
I second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is we have to do a roll call vote because our faces aren't being televised, it's our voices. So I'm just going to call on everybody quickly just to give your yay or nay. So Kathy,
Yay.
Asia,
Yay.
Jen,
Yay.
Supraja,
Yay.
Bria,
Yay.
Reverend J,
Yay.
Cantor Vera,
Yay.
Dave,
Yay.
Stacy,
Yay.
Deanna,
Yay.
Tony,
Yay.
EJ,
Yay.
and Ellen.
Yay.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay. So that is going to bring us to our next agenda item, which, hold on one sec, I believe is discussion of the storytelling. For some reason, there we go. I'm trying not to print stuff out to be, environmentally conscious, and flipping between screens is not easy to do. So we had talked in our last session about doing some storytelling so we could get to know each other a little bit better, and that we all are using the same language and dialogue, definitions, meanings, etc. So I met with our town council because we have, as many of you know, in Massachusetts, the open meeting law. And there are very few exceptions to the open meeting law, meaning that all public bodies, of which we are one, an appointed body of the Board of Selectmen, cannot meet without public either recording or in person without meeting a certain exemption, i.e. a legal matter, litigation, a discussion of a contract, personnel matters. So I talked to town council as to whether or not, our storytelling could fit into any of those exemptions. And unfortunately, she said no. Any discourse that we have has to be recorded for an ACAM. So I asked Reverend J to think about how we can still accomplish that, because I really do think it's powerful, and a lot of the learning that I've been doing lately has been listening to people's stories. And so I was hoping that Reverend J could lead us in a discussion as to what are some of the ideas that we could accomplish that, given there are 18 of us, pretty quickly, because I really want to dive into our work. I don't want to rush it, but I also think it might take a long time for us to get through 18 of us with our storytelling. So I'm looking to get your ideas and your input on how we can accomplish that, knowing that our dialogue is going to be public information. So I'll turn it over to you, Reverend J.
Thanks, Steve. And so I guess the question is going to be is how to facilitate this, and I'm not exactly sure the best way to kind of go. But I know that when I've done storytelling in the past, sometimes it's good to actually have people spend some time reflecting on their own story and actually doing some pre-work ahead of time where people can actually write things out. And so in talking in terms of kind of thinking things through with Dee, with 18 of us, if we gave everyone 10 minutes or so, that would take a good full 3 hours to cover everything, which is a very long time being online. And I think that most people's bandwidth after about an hour and a half kind of gets a little full, even though the stories would probably be very engaging. And so one suggestion would be is that we simply break it up over 2 sessions. And so we would use the next 2 sessions to do some storytelling, or we could simply have people spend a few minutes at the beginning of each meeting for maybe like 6 meetings, kind of sharing the stories. It would just kind of expand things a little bit, but then it wouldn't feel like we're just kind of cramming all the storytelling into one. So that would be, those are some of the ideas or some of the suggestions. My idea would be is to give everyone an opportunity to reflect on their story, to write things up. And then after we do that, when we gather together, we would probably go through a series of agreements about how we want to respect the space. We use a lot of work with Parker Palmer Circles of Trust as some guidelines in the work that we can do. And I can outline some of that to provide a framework for it. But the concern that we do have is the fact that since everything is going to be videotaped, I know that some of our stories may be very personal, and you might not necessarily want to share that in a public forum. We could work around that by having the stories, if they're written, maybe emailed out, the more sensitive ones, and only the people who feel comfortable sharing it on a public space could do that. So those are just some of the ideas that we could kind of bat around about how this group would feel comfortable moving forward, and really kind of building a good sense of community and a cohesiveness about the things that bring us together and why we are doing this work on behalf of the town of North Andover.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead,
Thank
Deanna.
you. I think it would be a wonderful opportunity if we could make this a community experience and a community project. And by sharing our own stories, and I encourage us all to do that, because by doing that, we are leading by example, and allowing for others to, own their stories and share their stories. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could create the framework? And is it the Parker Palmer Circle of Trust? Is that what you called it?
It's Parker Palmer. He's an author, and he has some guidelines called Circles of Trust to be able to frame how conversations can be a safe and healing place for people who want to grow together as a community.
So I can envision us using that framework and then bringing in folks from the community who also want to share their stories, and then creating a community project that maybe, is Kathleen still here? We could then share at the library, folks who are willing to make their stories public, and have this be, a work of the North Andover community, sharing our stories collectively. And we could, potentially record this with, I don't know if North Andover CAM would allow us to go in individually, or, could guide us through recording it ourselves on our own devices. But I think this would be something wonderful, not just for us, but as leaders to, show the benefit, and bring the community into this as well.
Can I add to that?
Of course, please.
Actually, I was thinking, like, if we take it a step further and almost make it like a social media challenge in our town. So like someone shares their story and you kind of nominate like a bunch of your friends, and like it's almost like you're just growing the circle, and like this can go just past the town of North Andover. I feel like we can kind of spread it, to like a larger area. If we do that, just to kind of like utilize social media, because I feel like it's pretty relevant. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any comments or concerns, questions?
I like the idea of maybe emailing the stories, maybe like a brief summary of each person's story, and then whoever wants to share can share. I think that would be a good way to consume the time, and maybe have people feel more open to share the story if it's not necessarily a presentation, but in a little synopsis. So I did like that idea.
Good, thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? No? Okay. So let me take some of those ideas back and see. One thing that I also need to double check is to make sure that also written information doesn't need to also be made public, because we're a public body. So unfortunately, that's the reality in which we have to function, even though our work has a little bit of a different nature in terms of the personalness of the committee members and the engagement and the investment that we are all making personally into the committee. But I will check on that, and I will definitely get back to everyone.
Sorry, I didn't mean for it to be like so it can be hidden. I meant just so that way all the stories can be presented, and if we don't have enough time to address them like in a meeting, then at least all the stories are out there and people have access to them if we don't get to all of them through an actual meeting.
Got it. Yeah. In my discussions with town council, she wanted me to make sure everybody was really aware of how open that we have to be with our discussions and our written communications as well. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that, so that if we do put some sort of a document in writing and it does need to be public, then I want people to make sure that they're aware of that when they write their stories. Okay, anything else before we move on to the next item? Okay, so the next item is officer positions. So last time we had talked about wanting to have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, because I am the interim chair, and the chair is made to rotate. And they wanted a chair in place, 90 days after the committee started. So has anyone given any thought to any interest in being the chair?
I'm happy to hold any position. This is a topic that is of great interest to me. So if I'm able to, I am happy to.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, so we can continue that discussion. Again, I will absolutely help with the meeting. I can do the minutes. That's fine with me. But we need to rotate out me as chair and have somebody else jump in. So think about it a little more. I know it's a lot of commitment. Everybody has work and family and other things in their lives. I know many of you are already on other committees as well. So just think about it and let me know if anyone is interested. Okay. So next on the agenda is to talk about the different subcommittees that we talked about. And I'm just going to bring up my minutes. Okay. So we came up with several different subcommittees that we were looking at breaking our work up into these different subcommittees. And I just wanted to touch upon this because I just wanted to have people think about which maybe top 3 committees out of the 9, I believe, that are in the minutes that they would want to be involved with. And I think once we get done with our storytelling exercise and people feel like we're at a comfortable place to start this work, that we start convening some of the subcommittees. And again, the subcommittee work, according to our town council, also needs to be public. So that's just another consideration that we have. But I know some people brought up some of the different subcommittees. So I think if you raised the subcommittee as an idea, if you want to take it and run with it. But if everybody could, for our, hi Dave. Yep, we want to go? Go ahead.
I was just going to add, we've learned with the Council on Aging that when subcommittees meet, they also must be public and online and on the TV.
Yes, and that's the COA was one of the mechanisms by which I learned that. So again, if people could take and think about the top 3 that they would like to do, and our next meeting we can start kind of formulating, which committees people might want to be on, and then hopefully by the meeting that we have our storytelling done, that we'll be ready to start filling those committees and start dividing and getting into the real meat and the real work. Reverend Jay, go ahead.
And so do you think you could just kind of summarize again, just kind of name out the 9? I'm looking at the minutes and it's included in the text, but if you could just kind of name the 9, I think that would be helpful.
Of course. Just trying to make sure my microphone is on. So we have the Economic Development Subcommittee to look at inclusion and housing issues, business training for local establishments, Community Education Subcommittee, that would be looking at more community facing, the Data Collection Subcommittee that would look at data and how we're going to use that to address some of the issues, the Support Group for Minority Small Business Owners Subcommittee, the Welcoming New Residents Subcommittee. I think it was EJ that talked about a survey committee to get data to figure out what the community is wanting to see from our work. And then North Andover Public School Education Subcommittee. And then finally, a Public Health Subcommittee. So those were all the various different subcommittees that we talked about. And interestingly enough, Sapraja asked about the conversation series. And actually, there has not been a conversation series in the past that was specifically by the town. I know the library has done different conversation series. So the fact that it says to continue is not grammatically correct because we would be creating a conversation series. So I just wanted to, that was a great question, Sapraja. I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that. So we would actually be starting the conversation series. So those are the different subcommittees that we had talked about. Yes, Reverend Jay?
And I think it's interesting talking about the conversation series because in many respects, it kind of builds upon what Deanna and what Supraja were talking about, is that we could actually use our stories as touching points for other people to share their stories and to create conversation. Because I know that when people begin to share their stories, dialogue can often be found. And if we create that safe space where people are then able to share their own stories, that is where the conversations could take a different kind of an angle. Rather than being a lecture series, it could be more simply a telling of stories as a conversation piece.
And interestingly enough, in many of the videos that I've been watching, it strikes me that the younger generation is really more comfortable with sharing their stories than my generation and those that came before me. I've watched some of the videos that actually Sapraja is in on YouTube, and it's just beautiful to see how comfortable younger people are with sharing their experience and their feelings than I think people that are in my age group or maybe older might feel. So I think that's a great idea, and I think you're right, Reverend Jay. It will bring out some more and richer discussion. Okay. Any other?
And Dee, when I brought up the survey, that was kind of, I mean, if you wanted to morph that in with the data collection, because
Okay.
that's kind of what I was thinking, like to build on the data collection, a survey also.
Yep.
So we can drop one subcommittee. That never hurts.
Does that make sense to everybody? Makes, okay. All right, good. Excellent. All right, any other questions or comments? Does anyone want to add anything? It's a pretty comprehensive list. I think we got a lot of great thinkers in this room here. Okay, so that's actually a great segue to our next agenda item, which is we have a guest with us today, Kathleen Keenan, who is the Stevens Memorial Library Director. And she and I have been having discussions about how the library would be a natural partner for our endeavor, because the library community has really taken this issue and run with it in terms of their resources, their ability to get speakers, their ability to share, obviously, resources, books, videos, etc. So I asked Kathleen if she wouldn't mind coming and kind of sharing with us what some of the ways that we can partner with the library, and one of which is probably their web capability is far superior, I think, to ours, and would get more resources, because we have talked about, and I think Jen brought this up, about really where are we going to put all these great resources that we're going to come up with. And so Kathleen has looked at us actually having our own tab on their webpage. So I'll let Kathleen jump in because she's done a lot of work in this area. So the floor is yours, Kathleen.
Well, it was lovely to be invited. I have to say, I was really so pleased when I saw the town decided to take the step of forming the commission. And Dee will know that as a natural born librarian, the minute I learn or read something, I think, who else would like to know this? And so that automatic sharing is part of it. And today, of course, with social media and things like websites, you can share with so many more people who you don't even have a direct contact with. So that's part of the role that the library's been playing. I see a lot of familiar faces on here and some new faces. The most familiar face is Noreen Marks. So 4 years ago, the North Andover Public Schools and the library started to partner on what are called community read programs. And the goal was to create spaces for people in the community to meet and get to know each other. And you facilitated this by having books that everybody was reading or movies that people were sharing and bringing in speakers. We've been very fortunate in 2 of the 4 series that we've done. The focus really brought us back again to things like diversity and equity and inclusion, both with the books that we've chosen and then the speakers that we've had. So when the commission formed, I wrote to Dee and said, these are the kinds of things that we naturally do as part of our workday, which is to find materials for people, to tell people about them. One of the advantages is that as a department, we have a budget and we have staff, and often commissions do not have budgets or very big staffs. And so I offered to Dee that if there are things that we can do that we can fit into our time, that it's a natural partnership for us to do that. So the Stevens Memorial Library is one of 8 libraries here in the Merrimack Valley. If you're using the public libraries, you know we have something called consortiums. The Merrimack Valley Library Consortium is 36 public libraries. We're all, contiguous neighbors, so like Andover, Haverhill, Lawrence, Methuen. 8 of us decided early on in this past spring, even before the news was bad, that we needed to be more proactive in bringing materials and programs and speakers to our communities. And we formed a group called Libraries Working Towards Social Justice. So this is Haverhill, Lawrence, Andover, Methuen, Wilmington, Tewksbury, Burlington, and I might be missing one, and of course, Stevens. So jointly, we've all been looking for programs and speakers and books and events that go to those kinds of topics about racism, systemic racism, anti-racism. Part of it is we're trying to go to the positive side, which is we all said we need to learn the history, because without the history, you don't need what you need, know what you need to change. So that's part of what we can help and offer in terms of those things. The other libraries are very graciously sharing. The beauty of COVID at the moment is, although we're really tired of Zoom, we're having phenomenal speakers from all over the United States because they don't have to drive to North Andover to speak in the library building. And we, the libraries, are really trying to take advantage of that. We're connecting with conferences, with things like study groups that are at universities. And we've started, the focus has been racism, but for us, that's a very big and broad term, because you'll start looking at things like Indigenous people, that we're looking at Latinx history, particularly, where we're so close in North Andover to Lawrence. And these are topics that just get to be bigger and broader all the time. There's probably no limits to these. And then you'll look at things like religious bias that comes into it. One of the big challenges, and Dee talked about it already, is vocabulary. There are so many words that are getting used, and so many of us have different understandings of what they mean. It makes part of the process of educating ourselves and educating others really difficult. So one of the things we've talked about is starting to work on some kind of vocabulary just for ourselves through the library and through the groups of libraries that we've got some common frame of reference. All of these programs, as we're starting to get information about them, we're starting to share them. I sent Dee today the prototype. We've started our new section on our website, and there's absolutely space for this commission. And part of it for me was to try and pull together all the initiatives in North Andover. So you'll see that there's a race amity page. There's a raise page if you're used to contact with the public school system or through the youth center, through the senior center, even through the police department. The raise values for the town are something that's been here for 10 years. North Andover's got to jump on a lot of this work because we've been talking in different departments about this for a long time. And I think your role is to bring us together. So we're trying to find all those resources that you hit one spot and you'll say, wow, look at all these things that North Andover's doing. So I will send the link to that page out. I can actually put it in the chat before I leave tonight. So I'm happy to answer questions, but as I've said to Dee, give me ideas or we'll send ideas your way and see what we want to do.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. Reverend Jay, question for Kathleen? Oh, I think you're there you go.
Here we go. I guess I have a question for Kathleen as well as the larger commission. We just finished talking about subcommittees. Would it be helpful to have a subcommittee that works directly with the library? Or Kathleen, how do you see the interface between what this commission is doing and what the library is wanting to do?
We could interface certainly with different subcommittees. Part of it is, as I say, for us, our focus as librarians always is on sharing. So we wouldn't necessarily think of working with just one of you. And I would say the inverse is true, that any subcommittee came up with an idea, I'd say send it to me and see if there's something we can help. I'm just looking for examples. So for instance, on the library website right now, we have a section called employment support. And so in this time when we know so many people have lost their jobs, we've switched some of our time and research to putting together resources to help people that are looking for jobs or maybe needing to work on their resume and things like this. So this is an area where maybe we do something with the business training subcommittee. If we look at something like welcome newcomers, there may be opportunities to have special open houses. The library has a YouTube channel. The library has a Zoom account. So and of course, through the town, we've got the Google Meet that we're using tonight. We have a lot of facilities, a lot of technical support that we can offer. For instance, if there was a speaker that the commission wanted to have, we could help you potentially pay for the speaker, because the friends of the library and the trustees of the library are very supportive of these kinds of programs. And again, this might go to the Public Education Committee. We're doing some programs right now where I have a librarian who's on in the background as the technical support for the Zoom account, while the speaker is free to just be speaking. So those are the kinds of resources that we're happy to offer. So it might be your program and your speaker, but we'd say, sure, let's pick a time and we'll use the library Zoom channel and I'll have the technical support there for you. I'm looking for other things. And of course, the NAPS, the public education, and working with the schools is something we're already doing. The school has some really great programs that are going on, and Lorraine can probably speak even more to those. The two that come to mind for me are the RAISE initiative, where they're working with all the school children to understand those values. And the other one is the the ADL program. There's a training program, peer-to-peer training. That's the Anti-Defamation League, if I'm doing ADL correctly. So there's this just amazing stuff in North Andover. Part of it is to get everybody in North Andover aware. I think whatever somebody's interest is, we might be able to find something that we're doing in North Andover in these initiatives that would speak to them and they would want to be involved, because in the end, this is about building a community, and that means you need to include everybody, or certainly as many as you can. And people do things when they're interested. So that's for me always is the goal. Find how many different ways there are to attract different people by their interests. Does that help?
Which is why I felt if we partner with the library, I think the library of all of our departments, except maybe, youth and rec gets the most hits in terms of tracking and visibility. I think the library is a natural partner that way. A lot of people go and reserve books on the library, and that would be a good way for us to attract people to what we're doing as well. Does anyone want to offer anything? Any questions for Kathleen? Everybody's so quiet today. All right. So thank you, Kathleen. So we will look forward. We actually look very much forward to working with the library, and your offer of financial assistance is excellent. We appreciate that, which is a good segue to our next item, which is our budget. So we do not have a budget for fiscal year 21, which is the fiscal year we are in. But having said that, the town manager, this is obviously a priority of the Board of Selectmen and the town manager. So if the commission comes up with something that we want to do and put forward, we will look at funding as a mechanism. So for example, if we want to bring in a speaker, ascertaining how much that would be, and maybe the library can partner with the town or something like that to get the event or the speaker or the book or whatever we want to do paid for. And then going into fiscal year 22, I will work with the town manager on establishing a budget. Committees and commissions do not normally have very large budgets, but I think our charge is a little unique in that we would want to bring in speakers and maybe purchase books in mass to have, at the library or things of that nature. So I will be, as we go through the budget process, talking to the town manager about what we can realistically do for a budget and making a proposal for fiscal year 22. So I wanted to report back on that. Any questions on that? Okay. Next is future business, and let me just get that. All right. So for our future business or any agenda items, does anyone have any agenda items that they may want to discuss or put on for our next meeting? Yeah.
I know that we had talked about developing a vocabulary, a common language, so that we all know that we all understand what it is that we're saying, and that there's a meaning that has a commonality to it. So that's something that I would like to put on an agenda. I'm not sure exactly, how to go about that. Do you pick 10 words and people give feedback in terms of what the definition means to them? But I find that would be helpful, at least for me.
Thank you. I agree completely. So that's good. That's definitely a good suggestion. I think too, if we're going to proceed with the storytelling portion, maybe for the next couple of meetings, we have a lighter agenda so we can allocate time for that purpose. And then as we proceed and once we get through that, maybe allocating a little more time to talk about the subcommittees and the other kind of business stuff about, what we want to get done. But I do think the storytelling piece is really something I'd love to get going on sooner than later. I think it was Jen that made the comment, we need to have our own community before we can go out and educate the larger community. So the sooner we can get that accomplished and get that going, I think the better. Okay. All right. Yes, Dave, go ahead.
Our 8 or 9 committees are hypothetical in terms of their addressing of potential needs that we as a collective body have sort of identified. Are there issues out there the select board have identified or other bodies in the town that we should be addressing?
I'll ask for the group to weigh in. I have not, no one has brought to my attention a specific thing that they wanted to address, but I will put that out to the group if they have any ideas of anything that they think that we should start with.
I guess what I'm asking is there is no crisis boiling that we ought to immediately address.
Again, I don't know of any. I think this whole discussion is a crisis that needs to be addressed. But in terms of, do I know of any large scale sort of issues, any, for lack of a better term, lawsuits or, we're going to be on the front page of the Globe. I don't know of anything of that. I just think it's the work that we need to address. And that's what brought it to the selectmen's attention. Honestly, I've worked in other communities that have had these type of committees for years. So, I think that we're getting up to the times, and the selectmen saw the need for this committee. So I personally don't know of any one issue or one item or, culmination of items, but I do, feel that it is obviously a top priority for the selectmen and the town manager. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? All right.
Denise, you're muted.
Denise, you're
See, I told you I wasn't good at flipping between these screens. So the last agenda item is everyone's schedules, but we already talked about that. I need to get to NACAM and figure out what nights that they will have open. And I can send that out to people and try to get a quorum for a subsequent meeting. It's going to be, as I said earlier, difficult for us to get all 18 of us at the same. Oh, Jen, is that your daughter? We had Amy's cat a few minutes ago. I love it. So it'll be difficult, but hopefully we can find a set date that's going to work, for a majority of the people. All right. Anyone have anything else that they want to add? Reverend Jay.
And so Denise, I know that as we start talking about the storytelling, I guess what I can do is I can connect with you, and maybe what I can do is I can provide some prompt questions for people to start thinking about their own story. And if we all do the inner work of reflecting on our relationships with others and how we've experienced and the deep wounds, I guess, in our lives about who we are, those kind of shape the stories about the diversity, equity, inclusion. I think that would be helpful. Our experiences with race, our experiences with discrimination, our experience with gender bias and whatnot. And so I guess if people are comfortable, I can send out some questions to kind of get prompts, and that way people can simply start doing the work that they need to do. Kathleen posted a link to Parker Palmer's website about circles of trust, and that kind of spells out some of the guidelines there. That focuses more on having conversation than it is really about storytelling, but the principles about honoring and creating space are very much the same, and we can probably go through that before we begin the storytelling.
Excellent, thank you. And again, I'm not familiar with this subject, so I look forward to those that have actually done it to help, help me, help us get through this. Okay, so if anyone, oh, I'm sorry, Jen, yep.
I totally don't want to be that person who makes the meeting go way
No,
longer.
that's okay, we're doing good on time.
So you were kind of saying, with the committees and stuff, just thinking about, I'm watching the numbers and things look like it's not going to be a great winter for us in terms of health and in terms of everything else. Do we want to try and at least get the public health and maybe the economic development committees going to start tackling how we can help the community? Because I worry, especially with like the food insecurity and the mental health, finding resources and supports, like just maybe starting to work together how we can get that structured.
Sure, what does the group think? I think that's a great idea. We were just talking about that in our division the other day. Any thoughts? Anyone want to chime in?
I second that. I agree that I believe it was Dave earlier that brought up any pressing issues, and I think Jen is right on. Those are some things that probably need to be addressed immediately with, mental health, substance abuse, just basic survival during this time. So I'm on board with that.
I agree as well. I think, storytelling is great and it's definitely needed, but I also think we need to work in tandem and address some of the issues that people are dealing with right now. I mean, it's hard for people, because I do this work, it's hard for me to focus on storytelling when I know there are people who are hungry, or there are people without hygiene items, or there are people dealing with mental health issues. And so I think we have to take an equity lens and really check our privilege, and we all have privilege, and figure out, okay, that may not be what we're going through, but there are residents in our town who are going through that. So how can we focus on storytelling, but also address the urgent needs that our community has, because not everyone lives in a household right now where they can afford to pay their bills and carry on like everything is fine.
Great, thank you. So we can definitely have an agenda item as to prioritizing what we're going to start our work on. I think that's a great idea. Thank you. And I think that's the beauty of this committee, is that we all have such a breadth of experience and different experiences that we can offer. So thank you all for that suggestion. Anyone else? Deanna? Oh, you're muted, Deanna. Sorry.
I thought I unmuted, sorry. So what folks were just talking about with public health is exactly what I do day to day in my position, as you know, but I don't think everybody in the meeting knows. So I wonder if we need a whole separate subcommittee, given that that's a position that we already have in town, which happens to be my position, or if we should focus the efforts of that subcommittee into one of the other subcommittees. Just throwing that out there. So for the folks that don't know, that's what I do as a community support coordinator, is help folks who are struggling with food insecurity. Right now, primarily with the pandemic, that's the majority of what I'm doing, is folks with food insecurity, folks who can't access resources that are available in the community, but whatever barriers are keeping them from accessing those resources, helping them to strategizing, hoping to find some kind of support that will get them over that bridge and get them to the resource that is available, or helping to create a resource where there isn't one. So as much as I would love to have 18 more people helping me do that. I know there aren't necessarily people focusing on the other areas that we've identified needing to work on as well. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Okay, any other ideas?
Yeah, I actually had a quick question first. This is Supraja. So I know you mentioned a committee for education, like the North Andover Public School System. So I know there's already like initiatives to kind of like add to the curriculum or like meet about like what we can do in schools. So I was wondering if we could get that committee started. Because it's I feel like a lot of the stuff is like kind of already in motion, so we would kind of be like a support for it. Miss Marks, what do you also think? Because I know you're from school.
Yeah, we do have a number of things going on educationally, from the work that Supraja's group is doing to some equity work with our staff. We're also doing some equity work with all of our principals, which will be, we did an assessment. We're working with some consultants from Boston College, and we're all the principals committed to once a month meeting, which is a lot right now. Everybody's pretty busy with the COVID issue. We also have through our teachers union MOA, we have another group that's started to look at bias in our curriculum. We have started to do a lot of work on the past few years with expanding the literature that we have in our school libraries. So there's lots of different things going on from the school point of view. I'd also just recommend that if you go to the North Andover Public Schools website, we have a Parent University tab there, and we did not do this work. It came from Melrose, but there is a whole piece there on race, which there's some really, really good information there. How to talk to kids at different levels, things that you can do with your family. We also, again, this came from Melrose, but just around Thanksgiving, we sent out a lot of information to all of our elementary staff. We made sure the libraries, last year our librarians got together and culled their collections to make sure that our work was really reflective of the truth. So we have done a lot of work around that. And as I said, this year that we shared a lot of information with our teachers that they could share with their students around the Thanksgiving holiday. So there are a lot of different things going on in the schools. And we also work with Deanna and with the library, because we had set up a summer lunch program a couple of years ago. We immediately qualified in the town to provide food to our students and their families as soon as the schools shut down. That was not the case in every town, and that was really work we did with Kathleen and our food services director, Erica Murphy. And that food was provided for families all through the summer. And right now, the state provides free breakfast and lunch to all students. I know that there was some work done at the senior center this summer. Some of the school district nurses were involved in that. And I'm wondering, I know when COVID first came to be, I was in touch with Deanna around food as well. I'm wondering if there are pockets of things that are going on in places that not everybody is aware of, and how we can pull those pieces together. Because I feel like, I might know of families or students who might have food insecurity. Deanna might know of some, but maybe Bria knows of others that we're not reaching, or that people don't know. So I'm wondering if that's part of what we have to talk about, is who's in touch with what parts of the community, to make this broader for people.
I agree.
Maureen, I think you just hit the nail on the head right there, is really connecting. And that was the biggest outcome of the food bank that we had over the summer, and having the school nurses involved in that, was merging the out-of-school folks and the in-school folks and those two communities. But we absolutely still have so many pockets. So I think that's a great place to start with that subcommittee.
And that could be a good use of the website as well, directing people to what their resources are and really identifying where those pockets of need are. Thank you both very much. Anything else?
Dee, just a question on the website. We don't have a tab there yet, do we? The committee?
Not on the town's website, but we're probably going to just create a tab that then directs people to that library website.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, well, that was it for our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, EJ, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dave, thank you. All right, so I'm going to do a roll call. I'll start again as my screen shows you. Kathy.
Yay.
Lorraine.
Yay.
Jen.
Yay.
Supraja.
Yay.
Yay. Bria.
Yay.
Reverend Jay.
Yay.
Asia and Kat.
Yay.
Dave.
Yay.
Stacy.
Yay.
Deanna.
Yay.
Tony.
Yay.
Lawrence. Larry. Okay. EJ.
Yay.
Ellen.
Yay.
Who am I missing? Is that it? That's it for members, right? Oh, I got Stacy. Okay, great. All right, so we are adjourned at 7:57 p.m. And again, we will be in touch with more materials, another date, and hopefully some resources from Reverend Jay to start our reflection. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kathleen, for being a guest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you.
Be safe, everyone. Take care.